Brought to you by bowlersmart.com. Trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning and welcome to the Beef and Barnzy show from once again another locale. I am in Troy, Michigan via a Ford Explorer, and Stu is in Pflugerville and back in his happy home in the kingdom.
Yeah, I'm getting ready this week to go off to Lubbock. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that many of my fellow professionals right now are signed up to go to Lubbock, which is a bit of a disappointment, given how much Jimbo and Sunday put in to host an event. So hopefully we'll have a few guys catch up with their entries towards the end of the week, and we'll have a good show down there. But right now, it's a little disappointing.
Yeah, I hadn't actually looked at it, and I'm up north, obviously, with the other tour, and so it didn't make a lot of sense for me to fly there and then fly back and all that in between. So a big PBA 50 regional an hour from where we are this week is the reason why I'm not playing. But yeah, I don't know. What do the total entries look like there right now?
I think it's right around 70, which, considering 75 people bowled at Fort Sill, is kind of a bit worrying.
Huh. Seems odd.
Yeah, this is a debate back and forth. I'm a professional bowler, and it's $10,000, and I don't really understand, but whatever. It is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, if your costs are relatively minor, it's a pretty good deal. You know, I get it. Yeah, $600 flight and a rental car kind of changes things a little bit, but
it's just amazing that in our region that $50 seems to be a tipping point. It's just mind blowing to me. Like this tournament's $300 and the others are $250, and a bunch of guys won't enter because there are like national tour guys playing, but it's just wild that people would go to Fort Sill with how that's been the last few years, and then I don't know. It's strange to me, but I guess, you know, people are going to spend their money how they want, and yeah. Anyway, like I say, if I had my way, the whole marketing around the PBA tour would be about majors. So then everything could count as a PBA title for all I cared, just like the golf, and then everybody wouldn't get up in their feels about what counts as a tournament, a national title, and what doesn't, and then we'd be fine, because the golfers don't give a shit about what's on the PGA tour. Like, they talk about it, you know, about the titles, but everybody talks about majors. So if we could move the focus to that, I think it'd be better. But we've had this debate ad nauseum. So, yeah, that is pretty much the truth. Never get in the mind of a bowler, you'll get lost. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be a lot of sense. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Yeah, the sun is shining down and it's shining on you, and you look like what is it? Christ the Redeemer.
You mean this is unusual?
Fry Fest, I think. is the best way of putting it. I think he got a little frustrated by not being able to go more than 3 frames without there being a breakdown, and his score being significantly lower than he would have liked was. I think that was what was to do with it, but I can't necessarily speak 100% for him on that one. I did not, Nico. No. I think that was a little over an exaggeration, but it's certainly never cold in there. I guess Anthony did discover some reasons as to why some of the issues are happening there, and it makes a lot of sense. They're building a new bowling center on the base, and it's going to be opening like 2027, I think it is, something like that. So something like that, anyway. But it's on the books, so they're not willing to spend money on the bowling center right now. So that's part of the issue, shall we say? Hey, Derek, how's your foot? I hope it's starting to feel a bit better. One of our fans up in Portland, Maine. So let's have a chat about Ryan's week. Seemed like it was a bit of a roller coaster of emotions in qualifying. What was the? I think Chris might have stalled. Yeah, Chris isn't that old. He's just stalled. Oh well, I guess I will chat away for a little bit while Chris tries to figure out. I guess he touched his phone, and when you're using the phone, it's a bit of a disaster. So anyway, Ryan needed to make the top 2 in the junior gold to be on the team. He did that. He was the number 1 seed after the match play section. They bowled on 6 blind patterns in the qualifying. They have the 5 balls that they register, so it's kind of you just go with what you see and try and make your best guesses based on pretty much nothing. Then I guess the matches were played on an additional pattern, but you couldn't touch surfaces after practice began. So what? That one was a bit of a strange one for me. And then of course we got on the TV, and that might or might not have been another pattern. I don't think, maybe Chris can break that down. When they were talking on the broadcast, because it was on Bowl TV, they kind of was saying that they weren't sure whether it was another pattern or whether it was another or one of the patterns they'd already bowled on. So that was kind of funny. Chris in one corner, Parker in the other corner, and their son's bowling. So role reversal for Ryan and Justin. Justin managed to get through the first match against Caleb. Both guys looked a little nervous. But Justin looked like he just made a couple of mistakes. He looked a little more comfortable overall. Like it felt like he had a better look, a better idea of what he wanted to do on the 2 lanes. Then he gets through to the final against, there we go, he's back. So I'm just slowly breaking down the whole junior gold. Different pattern, same pattern, not sure for the TV show.
Different pattern, because the first 7 weren't enough of a I guess decider. Not that it would have mattered, because we also the show was in a center that was 45 miles away from where the qualifying was. So
right. That's what I was about to ask.
Different surface, another pattern that was a little bit, that was probably one of the softer patterns. However, 9 and 10, which is the pair they used, was the original 1 and 2 in that building.
Yeah, Mike Flanagan actually mentioned that on the broadcast, which was kind of cool.
Yeah. Mechanic there. 11 and 12 has all the state records, and the triplicate 299 was in that building. At one point, the mixed team record, national record, was there in that building, I think on the same pair. 9 and 10 is not a pair where any house records are. So lane one or 9 was pretty tight down lane, and then Justin threw urethane on it the first game, which seemed to exacerbate it a little bit. And then yeah, I mean, halfway through game 2, he threw one that looked like an ace, and then at 2-8-10, then he moved 2 right, and he 2-8-10 on that one. And from then, it's kind of those things. It's the hard part about a 1-game deal, because if both those turn into makeable spares, he wins. Actually, if one of them turns into a makeable spare, I think he probably wins. And and then the last game, it was just kind of a war of attrition.
Yeah. Like I say, I felt like Ryan's misses tended to be a little bit fast from what we were watching on the broadcast, and if that was on the left lane, there was just no chance of, like, the ball just didn't slow down at all. So overall, though, how was the experience as a parent? It seems like there are a few horror stories going on, but mostly it seems involving the under 18.
Well, the U20 is a much different experience, because it's closer to 200 kids. The boys, it's one center. The first day is 4 40-minute practice sessions, and then an hour and a half break, and then squad 1 is that day after the 4 practice sessions. The next day is 3 4-game blocks on 3 different patterns. Then they cut to their basically half the field, bowl on a 5th pattern that you haven't bowled on yet. Then they cut to 32, I believe, or 45, a half again, basically. So from 180 to 90 to 45, and then down to 16. They bowled on a 5th pattern. Then they cut to match play, and then bowled on a 6th pattern, the 2-game matches, total pins, double elimination.
Let's just talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
With them bowling on 6 patterns in the same center, like, from you watching, how many distinctly different shapes do you think that you really saw?
Well, I didn't play that many different shapes. Just based on the shape of the pattern, I threw it a different spot, really. I threw it pretty hard most of the time.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I mean, though. I mean, like, the PBA has, I think at the last count, 27 different patterns. I think it's ridiculous. But they have about 27 different ones. And I think that they did a fairly good job in separating, like, the animal patterns and the World Series patterns and those summer swing patterns. But outside of that, I mean, to me, if they put it down and you have no clue what you're bowling on, like, did they really change anything?
Well, yeah, I mean, the biggest day 1 was basically a 36-ish with shape. It was by far the easiest pattern. As usual, a urethane fest. You could see that at the following patterns, they went from kind of a medium, and then they kind of kept getting longer. You could see that he was also putting the speed bump down lane and more oil in the front on a couple of them to really try and eliminate urethane. That's what I think. Obviously, we don't know what the real goal was.
Are you ever going to actually find out what the patterns were?
I think once it's over, they post them.
Yeah, because they might use some of the same ones for some of the tournaments.
Well, I'm
already.
sure they are. I mean, how many patterns can you recreate?
I don't know. My man's a genius. He might come up with 30.
Well, yeah.
I find it difficult to wonder why the under 12s would be playing on some of the patterns that they just bowled on, though.
Well, I think you could probably make an argument even some of the ones these guys bowled on. But like day 5 was a long pattern with shape on the gutter. It was probably the second most playable, although still the scores weren't high because it was the hook was all in the front. And then the last one, if I was to guess, is the Masters pattern because it was very flat. It was too short to play in, and they had a speed bump in it, which made it impossible to play out. And there was just no place to hide. They were impossible.
So I feel like me and you have a kind of a similar thought process on this, and I guess it might have something to do with us being old. But does really changing the pattern every single time like promote versatility?
I'll let you have a swing at it.
I didn't do anything that different. I threw it hard and rolled it, trapped it, or I threw it at the hook. Either.
Yeah, I just what I really mean is when you don't know what you're supposed to do, I don't really understand like how that promotes versatility because you're just going to do what you think you can get to the pocket. You're not necessarily going to do anything largely different.
No.
I feel like the reason why some of the majors were so great was because you turned up for the week and that was the challenge that you had in front of you. And it was very rare that you would see a pattern where somebody had the nuts because the pattern wasn't really that easy. I mean, the TOC's been soft over time, and then you would bowl your first block and you would see what went well, and then you would adapt and make changes. Now, with less balls, I can see that would be even more of a challenge. But to me, being able to have some knowledge of what happened, that's part of the sport. I don't really understand, like, just, hey, we're just going to chuck this out and it's 4 games. Like, 4 games? Like, are you kidding? Like, you barely even get, like, warmed up and you stop it.
Yeah, and you know how I feel about this, but I think actually this changing patterns every block works the exact opposite of its intent. I think versatile people have very little chance to use their versatility when you only bowl in it once. I think some of the greatest players got better as the week went on over time, and when you change patterns like that, it's basically some bowlers match up to the center fairly well, and then they figure out what that is, hopefully during some practice, and then they just keep using a similar strategy no matter what the pattern is.
To be honest, Regina, though, I think this is just like a problem with the sport in general. Like,
yeah, it's not over
just
the PBA side now.
Everybody just thinks putting like down 1 million patterns is like is somehow showing who's the most versatile. And I'm not really picking on him because he bowled excellently, but I bowled with Packy at the World Series. And Packy used the same ball for the entire time. And like, he basically played the same shape. He just played it in slightly a different part of the lane. So, I mean, what are we achieving here? Like, I mean, I understand that this is a debate that could go on forever and whatever. And, I'm not in charge of the sport. I just bowl it. So I don't really get any say in what we're doing and what it achieves. I just find it strange that we now have, we have 5 majors that we bowl. And one of them, I don't bowl with 4/5 of the people I'm bowling against. 2 of them, I bowl on a different pattern every day. One of them, the qualification doesn't matter at all because it's a bracket, which I'm completely fine with. I'm just saying that I bowl 15 games of qualifying, they don't matter. So now we're down to the TOC as the only tournament where we bowl one pattern like traditionally, and then they don't let half the guys who bowl on tour bowl.
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. Is we talk about the NFL or being copycat leagues, but the World Series comes out and it's completely new idea, different patterns every day. And now the U.S. Open's exactly the same. And now the Players Championship is kind of a different version of that. And now that's what we do every time. And I do think it works the other way. I don't think it makes it versatile at all because, the ability to fine tune and to do some of those things, that's a skill that doesn't really exist in an 8-game block because it does take time to really fine tune into that. You can kind of do general matchups, and that's what you find out.
I do also think that, and now I'm going to be, sound like sour grapes or whatever, but I do feel like with the amount people are using urethane now, that makes a huge difference to how that works out as well. Like when we bowled the World Series, it was almost unheard of for someone to make all of the cuts. Like when we were bowling in South Point, it was like almost impossible.
Yeah.
Now it happens all the time.
Yeah, because
and some of the time, the guys who make it
every day.
And some of the times, the guys who make it don't do anything different for all 3 days. Like, Vi made it. I think Vi, Jacob, Jesper, they all made all 3 when we were in South Point the last time. And that's not necessarily that it's right or wrong. It's just that that's kind of why what we're talking about has happened. Anyway, let's talk about something more fun.
I do want to address this one right here. They're talking about him banking so hard. Actually, the one common refrain, and I can't really speak to it because this is the first year for him, but there was way more variance in scoring pace. There was some pattern, like the day one was actually, or block one was actually pretty gettable. 100 over was an average score. It was 220 to 225 was what the best bowlers were all shooting. And then there was one that was extremely hard. And then there was 3 with different levels of, probably depending on what center they're in, would be somewhere between medium hard to sort of gettable. And so I do like the transition towards patterns that have some shape that you can bowl on versus just throwing it at the head pin and hoping.
This isn't a junior goal thing. This is a PBA thing. The problem that we run into when we bowl the tournaments on the multi-pattern is it is very difficult to get the scoring pace really similar. And I feel like part of the farce, or not farce, but part of the issue that I have with the US Open is they put out one day where the lanes are very, very high scoring, relatively speaking. And that day just counts for more. Because if you bowl really good that day, then you're probably going to make the cut almost regardless of how you bowled the other days.
Mm-hmm.
And does that really make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the hard pattern was so hard this year that you could actually you could give away as many pins as you got on the easy one this year. But, it was like the Masters. And it's just in a place where Garrett didn't really want to hook much. And he makes a pretty, urethane is a very limited option. And but
anyway,
yeah, that is tough, and especially in a couple of patterns.
Let's transition this into something more fun. What we're liking, hating about the new balls. For me, I'm not hating anything. I think that losing half the balls in the Arsenal in March, man, boys at head office have been working hard. I'm pretty happy. The only thing I'm a little salty about right now is I've got about 150 balls in my garage, and a few of them I don't really need. I've been keeping them around, but I don't really need them now. Because I mean, Infinite Physics. We're a fan of that one.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. The original Physics wasn't particularly one of my favorites. I wanted to like it because everybody was striking with it. It just didn't do it for me. The Proton Physics, I really like. It just happened to come out at the same time as the Reality came out. And I find the reality a little more versatile. But this infinite physics for me is that like it's the truth. Like of all the balls that have come out, this is that's my favorite. And then
you and I have been working on this a little bit too, but I certainly think the 4K balls, either fast or slow, seem to roll pretty good with say 500 or 1,000. I put 1,000 on that infinite physics and shined it up, and I thought it rolled great.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was very nervous because I use a lot of shiny balls. I was very nervous when we had this situation of not being able to have the 1,500 polish. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, I was starting to hoard some of the balls that I had that finish on it. But I feel like I found a pretty good compromise now for me. I took a old 500 pad, which was probably around 1,000. Wet sanded it, and then I hit it with step 2 on all 4 sides, and like for me, that's been pretty good. I did that with both mine and Tina's Wolverines, and like I say, that ball for me is. I've seen some guys saying that it's basically the replacement for the Wolverine. Like for me personally, I don't find them that close. Like I find this one to be much more continuous. Like for me, the Wolverine like stood up really hard. I don't feel like this new Wolverine stands up as hard. I feel like it's much more it comes much more around the corner. Like it almost feels like a hybrid Wolverine, if that kind of makes sense to guys. Like when you have those shiny hybrid ones that they hook a lot down the lane, but they're kind of just they pick up a little sooner and they have a longer hook window. I feel like that's how the new Wolverine works out for me.
When you're using step 2, you adding any more water to it? Are you thinning it out all, or just?
No, I haven't needed to. I've slapped it on there and then left it on probably for I don't know 10 seconds aside maybe, and then flip to a clean part of the towel to get rid of it. I do feel like if the step 2 gets a little older, you probably do need to add a little bit of water in it because I think it dries out a little bit over time.
Okay.
But yeah, that's definitely been my go-to. The Reality Strike, my Reality Strike came quite shiny. So I didn't need to do anything to that one. What have you guys seen out of that one?
I think the Reality Check is cleaner than the Altered.
Yeah, I keep calling it the Reality Strike. I'm sorry. I don't know why I can't stop. Reality Check.
We had a person in this car that kept calling it the Altered for a while, which really confused me what we were talking about. So, yeah.
It's all right, Ryan. Two idiots together.
We've all done it. It's there's a lot of them out there, but I think the Reality Check is cleaner than the Altered Reality. I don't think it's necessarily a replacement for that ball. To me, it fits in a little cleaner, a little more responsive than the Infinite, and so where the Infinite I think has that big long window. I think this is a little cleaner, a little sharper, but it's still very early. I just threw it yesterday again for the first time in a couple of months. So,
yeah,
what's your take?
Same thing.
I mean, I feel like for me I've got the Infinite with a little more surface on it because I feel like I feel like that just blends better. I think that the Reality Check is quicker than the Infinite. I think the Infinite's is definitely smoother. The one thing I did see though that I really do like about the Check is I feel it's really weird because of how quick it is, but it doesn't really go forward. Like for me, the Altered Reality really went forward once it made that move. And I don't really see that out of the Check that much unless the lanes are really dry. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to be a bit of trial and error. I drilled both of them with the same layout. I think that I'm probably going to have to eventually like sort of put a bit more of a gap in the layouts to really see the most potential. I think I'm probably going to stay with the same layout on the Infinite, that 5-inch pin, and with the reality check, I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go weaker. Is probably the gap that I think that's probably how I'm going to see a bigger gap. I don't know because I know that you've been using the Infinite Shiny. Maybe you're going to go the opposite way, Chris, but that's kind of the gap that I see. I think out of those. Idle Cosmos got any love for you guys?
Not a lot.
No.
The initial uh, test I did was fantastic with it, but it's such a crowded space with the Zens and Synergy and Phase 2 still, and there's a lot of balls in there, and so carving out its own space right now has been hard to find when to use it, as it's significantly better than some of the ones I've been using for a while. And that may be the one thing working against it for me is just the balls that I like in that space already.
Yeah, I mean, I've drilled two, and I much prefer the shiny one to the dull one.
Yeah.
Which I understand for most of the people watching is kind of a theme for me, but I probably need to drill one stronger. The problem for me with the idle core has been if I drill them weak, the cover's got to be really strong. And if I drill them stronger, it feels like the core just flares so much. Like the difference between a 5 3/4 inch pin for me and like a 5 1/4 inch pin is like the ball barely flaring to flaring the entire ball in that core. And it isn't like that in the Phase 2, which has similar numbers. I guess it's just the way the weight block lines up and like with my roll or whatever. It's amazing. Like, yeah, if I have the weak layout on a Phase 2, it flares more. If I have the strong layout on a Phase 2 and an idle, the idle core flares more. I'm not smart enough to understand why that is. But yeah, for me, it's I haven't really got out on the lanes with that and the Zen yet. But I have been throwing it off the Wolverine, and for me, they're a pretty cool one too. Kind of like I feel like the Cosmos is more of a hook stop, and the Wolverine is more of a a continuous motion. So I can see both being like, for me, the Cosmos is quite a bit earlier than the Wolverine, which makes sense.
Yeah,
Stronger
RG-wise, you're
cover.
5 points apart. So
Yeah, and the RGs and everything. But for doing the layout I was talking about, no, it's nowhere near as strong as the original Idol, the cover for me. But there's probably some chart that tells me I'm wrong. I'm just, when I'm throwing it, that's how I see it. Well, the burner isn't really new, but yeah, I use quite a few of the burners. Burner Solid was my USB-C ball. Got all my strikes at the Masters. If I'd have only had a spare ball and the burner, I would have probably made the cut. Because every other decision that I tried with a different ball resulted in me going minus. So, yeah.
Another thing I was talking about the other day, some guys that are smarter than me about the oils and everything else, and I was trying to remember when Logic and then Fire and Ice came out. The ones that are more solid solid oils. Is that around 15 or so?
12?
Logic was first. I guess Fire and Ice was after that, so it's probably 14.
Yeah, I think once we started bowling the US Open at the US Open, the Masters at Carolia, which was around 11, 12. I'm pretty sure they were using fire and ice by then, but I might be wrong. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, and then since then we've gone to Logic and we've gone to some of these others that get more and more solid. And I was trying to remember how that timeline, how close that was to about when urethane became common all the time.
Yeah.
And we talk about putting more oil in the front, eliminating urethane, and it really seems like is when we went to oils that hooked in the front more, is when urethane became the play. So it's interesting. I don't know that it has any correlation, but maybe it's just because those balls got made softer, so they hooked more and just became in play. But along with the rev rates going up at the same time.
Well, also the balls became softer as they were using them as well.
Well, there's also that.
But no, nowhere near as much. Like the Infinite's way cleaner than the Proton physics.
The Infinite cover is the same as the Dark Code. And I think somebody put it up there earlier. That's probably is the closest to the Dark Code, although to me it feels like the Infinite's stronger than a Dark Code.
For me, the Infinite's way more rounded. But if you drill if you want to see it, if you drill a strong layout on a Dark Code, wow, that ball hooks a lot. And then it doesn't hook at all in the last 10 feet of the lane. That core, holy shit, that flares a lot. I laid one out with like a 4.5-inch pin to use on a long pattern. And I clipped my ring finger. Like it just went all the way around the ball. I was like, oh. And I go to Sean Ryan. I was like, hey, Sean, I thought this would be a good idea. And Sean's like, yeah, that seems logical. I go, watch this. I throw it. And he's like, holy flare. As the entire ball was covered in oil. I was like, might not be the one. That was the one time when I was cursing that I couldn't put a huge balance hole on the axis.
Yeah. Tame that thing out. Knock some flare out. Yeah, it's a super clean cover with that dark color and one color and polish with a super monster core. It's a tricky one to get perfect. When it's right, it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, in the bowling center where we bowl on terrain oil. Dark Code is the nuts. Like,
on terrain, yeah.
Yeah. It's fantastic. That's when I knew that I was playing a completely different sport from Prather. Because Prather told me that when he bowls on absolute control, that's when the Dark Code comes into its own. And I was just like, what? What? I was like, he goes, this is absolutely the only oil I would use it on. And I was just like, huh? Because that's the absolute opposite of what I think of that ball. So, and, he was the runaway leader at the TOC. So, that's when you know you're a toe.
Thanks, James, for the heads up. That does pretty much correlate to, but that's also right around when urethane started getting made around 72 hardness. So instead of 78.
Or not.
Well, or 68, but yeah.
Yes, we're going to have some fun with it.
Yeah. We're going to laugh at ourselves too. So just it's all fair.
So Dom's arriving on Thursday. So I've got my office is full of Brunswick balls at the minute. Because it's Dom.
Well, yeah, you need about 20 of them to catch up.
Yeah, he's only at 8. Like he wasn't too over the top. Wow. I think he only actually wanted 6, but his ball rep made a decision.
Must have left them on the truck.
Well, he's flying in with some as well.
I gotcha. Yeah, my friend compares the Infinite Physics to RSTX2. I think the Infinite is stronger in the mid lane. I think that cover on the X2 is cleaner than the, which I know kind of how we're talking sounds a little counterintuitive, but the X2 is cleaner for me than that.
The X2 might be the replacement for the High Road Pearl for me. That ball flies up the lane.
it gets down there and it comes off of it in the right spots way more than not. So when it's right, it's not an all the time ball, but when it's right, it's different than others. Alan,
Well, it's been about 3 weeks since he last won a tournament, so he's probably due a grip change.
Yeah, at the very least. So
I mean, granted, he hasn't like bowled another tournament since then, but you know,
Logan, I think this is probably that's exactly where I would have it as a step down off of it. Even the reality check is in between there and the X2 for me. So yeah.
So I think that it's only fair if I was to give Tina's board a shout out. It's a Jay-Z quote, so don't tell me, but you are now tuned in to the MFing greatest. So I think she was talking about us, Chris.
Maybe she was talking about this guy. I don't know. He made all the shows last week. So for the Belmo releases. Yes, yeah. But I haven't for very long as of recent times. So
I do. My ego's not big enough that I worry about it not having a beef stew logo on it. I'm not sure we'd sell many of those. So I know that some of the guys, and I'm not going to mention names, they get their feelings a little hurt and they won't throw them. I don't really care.
He likes them.
Yeah.
He's on the trend and the trend too.
For me, I figure if Belmo's making lots of money out the balls, maybe it'll mean that I don't need to take a pay cut because that comes out of a different budget. So I'm like, go Belmo. The two things probably aren't connected at all, but it makes me feel better. But nice bowling, Ogle. Hello was it the clash where you spent more time on the cross than Jesus?
Yeah.
I'm with you, by the way, Matt. I don't know why your teammates weren't celebrating that one to win the first game. So Matt went Brooklyn to win the first game of the finals, and he celebrated, and his teammates looked at him, and I was just like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm on team how many until the Brooklyn's thrown against me, then I'm salty as salty AF, but you know."
Well, yeah.
Look at Ryan. Ryan's giving it the shake of the head. I know it was bullshit. Honestly, when I turned to Tommy, I thought Tommy was on the other team. Tommy was just looking at you like, "Don't even touch me."
Yeah, that's just pride effing with you there, right? Yeah.
Hey, Tommy, if you hit the head pin, it's got more of a prayer, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, good run, Matt. You bowl. I mean, the striking display you put on in the qualifier was pretty impressive, for sure.
Go and read that for the people that can't see it on their screens.
Matt said, I was pissed during the commercial. Tommy said he wasn't riding that train with me. I said, do you want to win or not? Oh shit. The thing is like, that's where Tommy draws the line at being a bad dude. Like, really? Come on now.
Wow.
Like, okay. All right. So, all right. Well, it's been fun. Thanks for joining us with your wardrobe in the back.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, this show's versatile, sometimes more than on the lane. So we just roll with what we roll with. So
yeah. Yep. So when's your next tournament starting?
A squad's bowling right now, so 3:30.
So did you practice yet?
Yeah, we practiced yesterday.
How'd it go?
Formula 45 this week, so you can throw a reality for about 10 minutes before it starts to bleed out, and then it's clean, and then cleaner, and then cleanest. I'm not sure some of the other people saw it that way, but I think my plan is pretty much reality, Axiom Pearl, Infinite,
X2.
X2, Emerald, and Hustle Wine.
Okay.
And I think they're all in play because about 30 minutes into the practice, I can make an Emerald hook about as much as any ball I have. So
Did you drill that Wolverine yet, or did they not have them?
I have. I drilled it. I got to throw it a little bit. I think actually I did 500 by hand and then polished over it, and I think I got a few too many lines in it. So I'm going to go over it on the spinner and get 1,000 on it, and then shine it back up again.
Yeah.
It was a little earlier. Some of it's the surface. It's a 20-year-old pro anvil skid. It's pretty beat up. So, but I'm going to retouch it again and see if we can improve the look of it a little bit. It was good, but it wasn't quite where I wanted it to fit.
Yeah, no, I understand. Like for me, I could see it being like, if you could keep the Zen in play for a while, I could see that being the one that you went to, like when you can't really get the Zen around the corner. If you were making like, more steps, like I could see it being something along the lines of, Zen followed by Cosmos, followed by that. But I can easily see going from Zen straight to that without.
To give you an idea, the Zen looks too early this week. So right now
it's kind of weird when it does that, isn't it? The Zen, like, it feels like there's sometimes when the lanes are dry that the Zen's okay, and then there's other times when it really burns up in the front and then it doesn't.
Yeah, it gets so smooth in the back that, I mean, he doesn't mind, but I just have to go ahead and go down to the Rex covers or or the smaller cores. So,
hey Logan, yeah. I think the thing is it's got the same cover, it's a different color. And I think that you're going to find a lot of people are just going to use the lazy comparison and say that it's exactly the same. I was quite happy to be in that because I think that's a good marketing thing. I think that the Wolverine was pretty popular.
Yeah.
For Tina, she was able to use the Wolverine to go really straight because it would get through the front, but it would have enough pop on the back. This new Wolverine is, for her, she can hook it way more, like 5 boards more, probably. I don't see as much gap as that. I just see a shape gap. So I see the Dark Moss as being a little earlier and like way more rounded, whereas I felt like the original Wolverine like stood up really hard. So if you can imagine this, if I want to slow hook it, the Wolverine is useless for me. Because the original Wolverine, because it gets to that spot, but I can't get it far enough down for it to hook as hard as it does. But if I'm throwing it quick and trying to hook it, then the Wolverine's really good because it's really responsive.
Right.
Whereas this Dark Moss, I feel like it's a little more easy to do the slow hook because it's such a longer hook phase.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, as we know, colors make a difference. The white Badgers versus the yellow versus others have been different too. So, no surprise. It'll have some small characteristics, but it's and the finish comes out it not polished. So, depending on how you do it, it will end up. But
the descriptions I'm giving are with them both with the same surface. So,
right.
Yeah. All right. Well, like this commenter's saying, Ryan looks bored as hell. No, that's just his. He's got the equivalent of the male RBF.
Oh yeah.
It's resting bored face.
Well,
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll try and figure out doing a show on Thursday. I'll probably chat about balls on Thursday. Maybe we'll have some video of said balls. I'll find a guest to come on because Chris will be bowling. And if Chris isn't bowling, Chris will be in a mood that won't be conducive to a very good show.
yeah, I have no argument there. Yeah.
If you don't make a cut on the PBA 50 tour, like Chris probably isn't in a chatty mood.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably not incorrect. So with that, hey, thanks for joining us on both YouTube and Facebook. Smash that subscribe button. Appreciate that. And with that being said, please support the sponsors that support us when you get a chance. Storm, Rotogrip, Niner Global, Cool It, Bowler Smart, Pinnacle GPS, Fire Lake Bowling Center, True Grit Coatings, and Lightning Strikes, as well as Platinum Ford, of course. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.
See you later.